Half a day and peace be with you. We celebrate another solemnity this weekend, the Most Holy Body and Blood of Christ, also known as Corpus Christi. A very short yet meaningful second reading this Sunday is from the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. The cup of blessing that we bless, is it not a participation in the blood of Christ? The bread that we break, is it not a participation in the body of Christ? Because the loaf of bread is one, we, the many, are one body, for we all partake of the one loaf. Our youth in the Diocese of Chalan, Kanoa, or we call them the Manhoben, are very important members of the body of Christ. I recently had some meaningful conversations with the young, members of our faith community, our hope in the church. I asked them questions about the importance of faith during these challenging times. What lessons have we learned in this COVID-19 pandemic? What are they grateful to God? And I even asked them one song that they can add to the ultimate quarantine playlist to lift fellow young people's spirits. Let me introduce to you some of our youth in our community. Maria Guerrero Terlahi, a graduate of Mount Carmel School, who is now taking college courses at the Northern Marianas College. Vinny Orsini, who is a young teacher at Hapwood, a dynamic facilitator in many of our youth gatherings, such as our youth camp, Sports Fest. Sam Santos and Tiava Toomata, the dynamic duo of St. Jude Parish Youth Ministry. They both take classes at NMC, have regular jobs, and still commit a significant amount of their time to youth ministry. Then we have Gerald Mercene, an incoming senior at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska, working towards a degree, major in political science, and minor in theology. Yes, theology, who came back to Saipan last March at the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have more dedicated, committed, and faith-filled youth, but we can't record them all. We'll share with you a taste of what we have to say, their insights, their reflections, their take in these difficult times. God bless our youth, very important members of the body of Christ, the Church. God bless you all. God bless the Manhoben.
Pandemic, we as youth, we are given so much free time. So in my free time, I learned a lot of new things and gained new skills. Something that I've learned was how to properly garden and take care and appreciate my plants. I also love to bake, so I baked some goodies and shared them with my family and friends. And you, Bishop, yes, next time. And then I love taking my siblings to go jogging or walking. And I also tried to learn yoga from home. And I think whatever the day called for, we just kept trying to keep persisting and kept being active. And whatever we could have done.
So for me, I always think in terms of like seasons, and I just told myself, think of it as an early summer that starts in February. So I have a 5-month summer. In the meantime, I've been doing a lot of cooking. I've been making a lot of Italian dishes and a lot of chamorro dishes. And my mom and my dad got mad when I tried to combine them because I made a pizza out of tortillas. Yeah, and beyond that, you know, for me, I need to stay busy. So I have a super clean house right now. Every day, I just do that to pass time. But it's really them that gets me sane, you know, having people to talk to and play cards with. That's how I've been handling this quarantine time mostly.
Some of the creative ways that we have been challenged and called to cater to the demands of this current situation that we find ourselves in, I would say, at least at the level of the church and at CCD, would be the online CCD class that I have initially integrated back in October for our confirmation students. So we would have classes at church on Saturdays, and then we had a supplementary platform wherein I engaged my students into discussion forums and different levels and stages of preparation for their eventual confirmation. Now, when the lockdown happened and we were under quarantine, I was then challenged to move and transition that face-to-face class setting to a full-time online course. And that was honestly, for the most part, very successful, but also it also had its challenges, and that's something that I'm constantly learning as an educator, as a catechist, and something that I'm able to see, which one is working, which strategies work, which don't, and try to build from that.
I don't know if creative perhaps is the right word, but I feel like with, the close to 3 months that we've had, we were able to tap into different passions and hobbies that maybe we have disconnected with or found something that we could reconnect with. So for example, I'm really close to my youth at St. Jude, and we have a youth group chat where we constantly update each other and just find new ways to interact with one another, because I think communication is really important throughout this pandemic, and we are very blessed that this is different circumstances than before when we had to stay at home. When things were canceled, it's usually a natural disaster. But now, with the gift of internet and wireless accessibility, we're able to tap into different hobbies. Like I said, like cooking, for example, we all share what we made for dinner. We look at videos on YouTube, what we can create for ourselves, for our family, and hopefully what we can create for each other when we get to go back, when things get back to normal. Different hobbies, perhaps art, singing, writing. Me personally, the pandemic happened during Lent, where I wanted to go on a spiritual cleanse myself. So finding different ways to exercise, to walk, to keep a good physical shape and a good spiritual shape as well. So just walking just nearby my house, at the gym before it closed, at the track, or even at Beach Road, you run into different people, still wearing their masks, still being protected. And that's what basically I did throughout the pandemic so far.
Ever since the pandemic happened, most of us haven't been going outside to do any activities, but what we have been doing is setting up Zoom meetings that our school would also use for our classes while we were still at classes. Now the classes are gone. We've just been doing Zoom meetings. We've been also exchanging playlists on Spotify, sharing videos with each other. We're always active in group chats because all the youth today are on their phones. So while we're not necessarily outside with each other, we're all still connected together through the internet and all that other stuff.
You mentioned about not in school. Share with us where you study for college, what year?
I go to school at Korean University. I'm an upcoming senior. I'm studying political science with a minor in theology, and I plan to go to law school.
For the seminary, for that matter.
Possibly.
Yes. Okay, I want to go there for your graduation. So Gerard, what happened? You came back to Saipan, your home, right after?
Yeah, actually, right around March, it was the end of our spring break for us, and our school decided not to come back to regular classes and decided to switch to online classes due to the pandemic. So during that time, my family and I decided that it would be best that I should go home and just wait out the pandemic here at home. And since everything was online, it really wasn't an issue if I left home or not. So luckily for me, the school provided me with funds for my ticket to come back here to Saipan. And when I came here to Saipan, I was actually quarantined for 2 weeks. 1 week at Kanoa Resort and 1 week at PIC. Well, I was really grateful for the government that they're taking this seriously and making sure that everyone's safe.
When the pandemic first got closer to home, it got very scary. I was worried for myself as well as for my family, my grandparents. However, prayer was our method of coping. What my family did was every day we would gather in the living room at 3 p.m. and pray and recite the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. And we also look forward to 5 p.m. Mass on the TV screen in our living room. When our faith is challenged, it allows us to really explore our reality with our trust in God. And when we see things that we don't understand, our true faith is really that we see God, we trust in God, even when we are uncertain of things and when we don't understand. So throughout this time, during hardships and hard circumstances, trust in God is very important. And that's what we were taught in our household.
Would you say that your faith or trust in God was tested during this time?
No, I feel like my faith was definitely more developed, especially because prayer every day, struggle brings more strength.
I was so heartbroken when, not because the gyms closed or because my work closed, but really because the church had to close for a while. And so it really put my faith into perspective that I can't rely on a building anymore for my faith. I have to make like my house the church. And so, while I was watching the online masses and I was eating popcorn while I was doing it. It's like a TV show, but it's more than that. I do love the homilies, but the body of Christ is really what I miss the most. And so when I got to receive it after so many months, I was just so thrilled. I know a lot of people die for the Eucharist. A lot of priests have been killed because they have held it. So, to withhold it from ourselves for the benefit of the community, it's a big risk, but it's kind of reminded of our sacrifice that we have to make as people to help everybody and make sure everyone is safe. I'm really glad that it's open again, and I've never watched the Pope so many times. He did this one thing where he was in Rome and he made a Ubi et Orbi, which was like a message to the world. And he's an 80-year-old man with one lung, and he made a message standing out in the rain, talking to the citizens of the world about staying strong and being not afraid. So I try to remember that throughout the course. I had to try to be as holy as I could be because I was very scared about asking for confession when I know the priest might be afraid to give it. But all the priests that I've encountered so far have been really open about the idea of confession. I'm so happy for that sacrament at least. So how my faith has been, it's been a journey because I had a birthday, 25-year-old. I turned 25 this year, and I was given a letter, an email saying that I was furloughed around the time of my birthday. And it all just made me think like, I go to school and get good grades so I can go to college. I go to college so I can get a good job. And then one day you find out like that good job that you worked so hard for in your life, it's no longer there. And so in my faith, I was really tested, like, what do I pray for? Why am I in front of God for? Is it so that he can bless me with things, or is it because of who he is? He is love. And so I've just been like blown away with how different my whole prayer life has been. And I've kind of evolved to, instead of always asking God for things, I've found myself actually thanking God for more things since the whole world of me has kind of been destroyed. So I'm building back again, and I'm seeing God restore little by little. But I remember that thing that I was told when I was younger, that God doesn't give you anything you cannot handle. And so I always think like, God, stop trusting me so much, and he's been great. So that's my faith.
You're one of the dedicated and energetic teachers at Hopwood. And I can imagine receiving the letter.
Yeah.
Very devastating. Thank you for sharing that. You were able to rise above that. You mentioned about Sacrament of Reconciliation.
Yeah.
And I remember that was a middle of Lenten season that we stopped celebrating Mass with the congregation. So were you able to receive the sacrament?
Yes, I was. I was given it around Easter time. So Polly Jesse really helped me there. And around Easter time, we decorated the house and and eggs and had an Easter celebration there. But the home altar is an altar, so we had to use it. The Sacrament of Reconciliation, confession is my favorite sacrament. I try to do it once a month, but it's
Why? What is in the reconciliation, the sacrament?
I like the idea of confession because it reminds us that the Eucharist is like the seed that grows all life, but you got to make sure the soil is good and fertile. So I like confession because it cleanses me of my sins, and it gives me a better position to receive the Eucharist in. Also, I was so afraid of dying from the coronavirus that I just wanted to make sure that I was in a state of grace if it ever occurred.
Faith tells us that we should be ready anytime. Did it dawn on you that anytime you can go?
Oh yes, yeah, definitely. And I think I was more afraid of not getting the virus, but maybe giving it to the people I love, like my mom and my dad, who are in more fragile conditions than I am. So if my friends wanted to secretly hang out, I would have to sometimes say no, I don't want to hang out with you because I don't want to risk getting my parents sick, So it's that balance between being not afraid, but also staying safe and cautious that
I would say that this quarantine period has really helped me be more grounded with my faith. And this is something that I personally struggled with for a very long time, because I used to have that sense of structure with my faith. I prefer being structured about, everything that I do, from my schedule to my to-do lists and even my prayer. And before I would pray the rosary every night, and then, as I got older, I kind of got lost in touch with that. And so having this time of quarantine and, having more time for myself, I answered God's invitation, that gentle nudge of God to converse with Him, to engage with Him in prayer. And honestly, it has been very great. I picked up my Christian prayer again. I would pray the evening prayer, the rosary too, especially during the month of May, and really be more in touch and encounter Christ at a time when I thought that I almost didn't have that connection. And so, regardless of how busy my schedule has become in the past, I realized that even just a simple thought of God in my daily life would have sufficed. And I'm really happy that I've been in touch with that prayer life since this quarantine happened, and I'm glad that I'm continuing it.
People turn to prayer and to faith in a time of crisis. And I constantly remind my students and myself that prayer should never be the last resort. Prayer and faith should always be priority. And I think it starts off with balancing your priorities first. But turning to God, turning to His scriptures, turning to the word of Christ is what brings our faith forward. There are many different interpretations that I give to my students, and I try my best. And I feel like with these interpretations, that's what we can do to better ourselves spiritually. Constantly watching Mass online, as well as the gospel reflections from our deacons. Just small ways to remind ourselves that even though we're not at the comfort of the church, we are at the comfort of our home. And although we associate different places with different feelings, personally, I found it hard to adjust to online Mass. I associate home with a place where I took off all my hats that I wear in my community, or where I did my homework. But turning home into that sanctuary that I once called church, that was a difficult transition for me and my students. But just a message of resilience is what I'm trying to say. Just be resilient with your faith, because your faith will pay you back tenfold. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but definitely in the long run.
I do talk with my friends a lot about different spiritual things, and as far as I know, they've been really active. They've been watching the masses, just like I am. And for me personally, with me and my family, we've been more spiritually active. We started praying together again. While I was at home during the summer last year, like we would all just pray at our own individual times, just like recite the rosary like on our own free time. But now, since we're all together all the time, we usually do the rosary at night together. We just find the time probably after dinner and we all do the rosary together. And I think that's like that's in part due to all the free time that we had and all the like we get closer together just because of the pandemic and we couldn't like go anywhere else.
In our theology classes, we are really taught how to be moral and how to be strong with God, with faith from God and faith in God. And they taught us that prayer was the most important thing, was very important. They implemented that every day when we began classes. We had to pray to get through a test, to get through even simple as homework. Prayer was something that was our strength and really got us through our whole high school years.
And you definitely have a strong support from your family. You mentioned about gathering together for the 5 p.m. Mass
Yes.
and praying the Divine Mercy. So there's a lot of that, and you are fortunate, you are blessed to have that kind of family support. How about your peers? Have you engaged in a conversation with them on how they are during this time? And has faith also played an important role in the way they cope with the situation?
When I talk to my peers and they vent to me their struggles, I try and encourage them, not only with advice, but letting them know that God is there for them, and in any struggle that they're going through, that just to pray, because prayer is the only way that they'll get through it. And that's really all we can do right now, is pray and ask God for help and guidance. And that's what I try and convey to my friends.
Some people shared with me that, this entire situation, this pandemic, is a punishment from God. What do you think?
No, I think God is, when we're faced with things like this, God is definitely testing us and testing our faith. And during this time, it's not a punishment. We just have to look to Him and say, we trust in you. We trust that whatever you're doing, this is your plan, and there is good that will come out of everything that He does.
There's this one verse at the end of the book of Job. It's in chapter 42. It's when God explains that Job will not be able to understand everything that happens. And I think Job says to God, forgive me, for I do not know. He says, forgive me, for I might not understand things too wonderful for me to know. And I always think like, we don't understand what's going on right now, but I know that God works for the greater good of everybody. And so I really hope to see what kind of good things come out of this. And I see some good stuff already happening. I think a lot of people are closer to their family, which is something that we as an island have been struggling with. There's a statistics that says 25% of all homes are domestic abusive homes. And so when the pandemic happened, I really thought and prayed for the 25% of our homes that may be, abusive every single day, especially to kids like my students. And so I feel like now we need heroes, young heroes, by the way, more than ever. I think God has a saint for every time. And so I'm really happy and excited to see who are the saints of our time. And I hope that there's a lot on our island. I already see some,
The next were saints. You've shared on many occasions about saints, and I'm actually surprised the many saints that canonized, recognized by the church.
Oh, right on.
Who would be the saint during this difficult time?
Wow, that's a good question. Oh man, I would, and I have prayed to this one blessed saint. His name's Pier Giorgio Frassati, and he was 24 years old, so he was like around my age, and he was in Italy 100 years ago when another virus broke out, and he was from a very wealthy family, but he spent a lot of his time with the poor, and so he actually contracted a disease from one of the poor people he was serving. His family didn't know what he was doing, so on the day of his funeral, the family was surprised to see thousands of poor people come in attendance. So they were all touched by his example. And he was a young guy, 24 years old. So I was definitely praying to him, dear Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati, I know that you died when you were 24, but can I please see 25? That would be good.
I think he interceded for you.
I hope.
I would honestly, when the quarantine and the lockdown happened and news of our majority of the locally funded staff in PSS was going to be furloughed, it was a time of uncertainty for myself and for my coworkers as well. However, for me personally, the consolation that I really found solace in was from the Gospel of St. John. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You have faith in God, have faith also in me. And that is something that has resonated with me since. And so during this time of pandemic, honestly, faith is something that has really been that strong foundational source of that consolation that I needed, that I have encountered again. And I'm sure for a lot of people, it's been the same. And like you said, Bishop, I'm very committed into what I do, whether it's in my workplace or at school or even at church, where I dedicate majority of my time in. And at the end of the day, even though I'm tired, the consolation that I have is knowing that I have done God's will in my life, God's plans for me for that day. And I can only hope and pray that whatever I did has glorified Him. And if it has displeased anybody or Him, then I ask for that forgiveness.
I think it was really, really difficult during U2. Our community has gone through a lot, for sure, these past couple years with 2 back-to-back major typhoons and us just slowly recovering from another one. And to have this pandemic hit us, I feel like our community is strong. We're resilient. We push through. We're survivors. And we are, that hashtag Mariana strong. And how we remain strong is we continuously rely on one another. We have that faith and that trust in one another. The same way that, our youth and hopefully all ages of our community can put that same faith and that same trust in God. That's a really good point you brought up. Is God punishing us? No, I don't think God is punishing us. I think we are learning lessons day by day, taking challenges day by day. And when this happens in the future, because we never know what the future holds, our generation definitely has a lot that we can preach about in the future. But now we know. Now we're ready. A big shout out to all our community members, whether it came from the government or local and federal agencies that have been able to help us. Because now that we've built that sense of trust with one another, we need to rebuild that sense of trust with God. That sense of trust that we first initially got when we were baptized, that sense of trust you got when, hopefully my students get confirmed, when our students get confirmed, and just trust one another and trust God, because when you put God first, your life will be a lot happier.
One thing that I've learned during this pandemic is probably to be more resilient. And I think how the church can help in that case is, since here on island, everyone looks to the church as like a sense of community, if the church calls for everyone to come together in prayer, the people will listen. So I just think being more resilient in terms of this pandemic and just trusting God that everything will be all right will make everything better.
Grateful for the chance to slow down life and restore important relationships. Quarantine has allowed me to really grow closer and better my relationship with my family and all my peers. And I'm also thankful for all the frontliners and for God for giving them that resilience to keep going every day since the beginning of this pandemic. So yes, I think gratitude is definitely important during times of crisis.
And your dad is one of the frontliners.
Yes, in the hospital, yeah.
My faith has never wavered, and that's something that I can proudly say. And this is not just, my own strength alone, but this comes from building a community within your parish, within your home. I'm blessed to have parents who encourage me to go to church and to spend my time wisely. I'm blessed to have friends that, accompany me to church and help out in ministries. I'm blessed to have a parish that takes care of me, that takes care of my youth. And, with all those factors, it's hard to say that my faith has wavered, because if anything, it has grown. I've said this many times, whether it was, just us personally or with my friends, or even from a previous recording, I am in love with my faith, and nothing can ever waver that. It only continues to grow stronger every day. And even I, the same feeling I got surrounded by a million Catholics is the same feeling I get surrounded by just us here. We're all here for one reason. And although it may take a long, hard journey to find out what that reason is, I cling on to God. And I encourage all the viewers, cling on to God, and you'll see where He takes you. Life is a journey, and we need that light, and Jesus is that light.
Probably one thing I would be grateful for is just being home with my parents at the moment. I haven't been able to see them during college, of course, but it's nice to be home a little bit earlier, because I usually do come home every summer, but being home earlier and just being with them is always a plus for me. Because during the school year, like, my parents would call every day and I would talk to them. So it's not like I lose my connection with my parents. It's just being physically with them all the time is always like a good thing.
I think music is a way to express joy. So a song I would choose is Don't Worry, Be Happy by Bob Marley. I think everyone would agree that.
No, but give us I think I know that song. Give us a few.
It's like, don't worry about a thing, right?
Yes.
Because every little thing is gonna be alright.
I think the song that helps me through the coronavirus pandemic would have to be Don't Stop Believing by Journey. And I think it's just a really good inspirational song. It goes, don't stop believing, hold on to that feeling, street lights, people. Okay.
If I were to contribute a song for a quarantine playlist, then it would be Born Tired by Janae Aiko. And it's a song that actually just came out. So it's Born Tired and then Love. The two songs are actually make a whole. So I guess the meaning of the song is, someone who's really tired about their day-to-day life. And that was honestly me, burnt out, mentally, physically challenged and exhausted. And then the song then transitions into something bright and joyful. And so this quarantine period has been for me very rejuvenating, because I've been able to be more grounded, even to have meals with my parents, or just to talk to them, wake up to them and go to sleep with them. Those simple things that I have not been able to do for a long time, I'm able to do again.
Share with us a line or two.
Okay, so the transition from Born Tired to Love goes la 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 love, la 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 love, la 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 love, and then it goes from a very draggy song, it becomes more upbeat.
So a song, when I first saw that, the first song that popped into my mind was On Eagle's Wings by Michael John Pass. Yeah,
we can sing the refrain together.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn. Yeah, make you to shine. Yeah, it's great. The choirs at St. Jude, Olomoy Family Choir and Edessa Youth Choir, both have sang that song in mass, and every time it's sung, it's really, like you said, uplifting. You are being raised on eagle's wings. You are being raised with God to find salvation, to find a better place. And the place we are in now, although has improved, we can always jump on those eagle's wings and continue on our journey and go even higher. If you think we're at our best now, you wouldn't even imagine what God has planned for us.
You Raise Me Up by Josh Groban.
Give us a feeling.
Okay. When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, and I am still and wait here in the darkness until you come and sit a while with me.
I just want to tell our community, especially our youth community, that we're so young and we have to use our young ability, I would call it, to really inspire others with what we have, with prayer, to show others that prayer is important, to show others that gratitude is important, and that to keep on going, keep on persisting, keep on doing what makes you you, and just to be there because God is there for you all the time. And so I would like just to keep on going, keep on trying to live every day, and you'll get there.
I know these are different times, but there's always cool people in all of it. There's always something to do in every single situation you're given. God doesn't give you anything you cannot handle. So if God's giving you all this stuff, you can do it. And there's no rainbow without some rain. So, let it rain so that we can see how beautiful the outcome is. We're not Christians because God gives us everything we want. We're Christians because we want God. So desire Him and seek Him, whether it's online or in church. And He's always there. And likewise, whoever is listening, be there with Him, and I'm with you too.
If there's a few things that I would like to share with our youth and for my confirmation students, and I'm going to steal this from your homily last Sunday, Bishop, is that God's love, God's fidelity is constant in our life. And I think that that message is very reassuring during this time of pandemic, during this time of uncertainty, even during this time of unrest in many countries. We need to remind ourselves that God's love and His fidelity, His healing and His hope is constant in our lives, and therefore we must not let our hearts be troubled.
Keep strong with your faith. I know during this time of crisis, especially with the pandemic and recently with the protests and all that's going on around the world, I think having strong faith and connecting with the church, and especially your friends and family, it's important that you keep a strong support network and always know that God's there with you.
To my youth, I preach a message of resilience. You are strong. You have been through so many things that many generations can't say that they've been through and survived through. You have many stories to tell to your future children, to your future students, to so many different people that can't imagine what we have gone through. And I ask you, please, don't forget about your faith, because your faith is what brings you here. To my students at St. Jude, I preach a lot about finding your own individuality. I'm only a vessel of a message to God. There's only so much I can do. The rest is in your hands. And what you can do in your hands with God in mind is beyond anything. You will find your own eagle's wings, and you will soar and you will rise. And I believe you can all do it. Thank you.
And God bless you guys.
God bless you, Bishop. Thank you.